All right, thank you guys. I know we're the last before the bar, so we'll try to keep this entertaining. So Art did the intros. I think what we wanted to talk through was just, I think this one's a little bit different. So I'm the brand side and these are the partner side. So it's a little bit of a unique influx here. But I think we want to start really with Matt on, and everybody's going to give their perspective, but I think we have some specific ones here. But what the hell is Web3 and what is an NFT?
I'm glad we're saving this for the last session because I feel like it could invite both questions, criticism, but hopefully at the end, lots of enthusiasm. So we are entering now the next phase of digital marketing, digital technology, an evolution and a revolution all at once. Just to level set, to answer your question, Web 1, 25 years ago, was the beginning of the internet where brands, publishers, creators could push content out. It was very one-directional. It became really interesting about 15 years ago when users became creators and the conversation, the content went multi-directional. But what ended up happening as a result of that, big media platforms became the owners of our content, of our data, and ultimately the relationship that brands have with consumers. They own it. They own your content. They don't own your brand, but they own your content and your data. So Web3 began to shift the narrative a bit back from those central media players, because we rely on them to make decisions on our behalf. And we trust that governments and banks and big corporations aren't going to screw us over. Some do, some don't. Web3, which is a blockchain-based experience, and blockchain is just an open version of the internet, Web3 gives all of us an opportunity to become creators and owners of that content again. And it started out as artists and cryptocurrency and different use cases for blockchain technology that are all very different. So you can't lump together blockchain and metaverses and crypto and NFTs all in one fell swoop. You can't. It's wrong. So my job, I guess, today is to help demystify some of that and understand that for marketers, for brands, the opportunities are unlike anything we've ever experienced. I was one of the first agency leads way back, building social media platform experiences with brands and consumers. This is an even better opportunity for marketers over the next 10 years. The way in is starting by seeding tokens, NFTs, not as speculative currency opportunities, but as a CRM play. This is a loyalty play. If you can get your consumers to earn or collect or game their way into a relationship with you, existing community members, existing consumers, then you are going to be ahead of the curve, ahead of your competitors for the next, until we get to Web 4, whatever that's going to look like.
So on that, very quickly, so what would it be, I mean, you went through it a little bit, so for me as a restaurant QSR guy, how would I execute that? So I've got loyalty, I've got a basic tech stack, and I want to get into blockchain NFT something. Where do I start?
So there are a few examples, but the best way I can explain it is, you know your audiences or audience segments already through data and experiences that you've created by building that up, that relationship up over time. The challenge is a lot of those platforms that you've leveraged to build those relationships, you don't actually own the rules. So by bringing it back in your owned and operated ecosystem, you have an opportunity to kind of reclaim that relationship. And you do that by building out or expanding the current models that you have. So whatever loyalty program you have, whatever behaviors are already being incentivized, you just have to align those incentives and leverage the technology in a very simple way, and happy to explain it later, but I mean, you don't always ask the pilot how to fly the plane, you just pick your destination in your seat and you hope that you're gonna get there. That's kind of like where we're going right now. We can help you collectively understand what the baby steps are, not jumping into fully decentralized Web3 with extreme crypto bros, but what this means from a loyalty and a CRM play around the idea of a blockchain-based asset known as a token, a non-fungible token. It can be artist-driven, it can be influencer-driven, but at the end of the day, it's a unique asset that someone owns and uses to unlock access to all of your content and experiences. The current social platforms are building token gating now. If you don't build a seeded community in the next year, your community within those platforms will not be able to access certain levels and tiers of content. So by getting started, it's just adapting your current loyalty program.
So a lot of this is obviously a data play. So I want to talk a little bit of that with Toby on, we talk about data and data obsession, be data first, everything else. But, the models are still garbage in equals garbage out, right? So how do you maintain kind of a human touch to this, a human element, to make sure it's not just an algorithm deciding, it's not just, AI, machine learning, whatever it is?
Yeah, it's a great point. It's funny, we do a lot of basis in terms of having first-party data that we ingest from our clients, but we also work with a lot of third-party vendors as well. And it's always a matter of just also having sort of a human touch and a human eye to things. I mean, certain things are very obvious when it comes to an algorithm. You understand what's happening in terms of, X happens to Y or whatever that sequence is, but there's also things that are just like head scratchers too. And so sometimes I just think you really need like the human eye to take a look at something and really analyze and say, okay, well, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. And not enough people are doing that. And I don't think enough people are doing that for a couple of reasons. One is just talent, right? Trying to find people who are great data scientists, trying to find people who are great at managed service or people on the agency side that are really taking a close look at this. But I also think people are just becoming very, very reliant on it. So I think that's been a bit part of the problem. I also think it's just like, it's one of those things, like we had this thing one time where somebody wanted to just sort of like target people who were going on a cruise line, right? And so they're like, okay, well, the algorithm says that everybody that wants to go on a cruise line basically has looked into cruise lines in the past. Well, it's a very small audience of people who have looked at cruise lines in the past. And one, also, like they've also either traveled or they are loyalists or something like that. And so we really put our data scientists on it and we're like, okay, what other attributes could maybe look at and say, this is an indicator? And so one of the things we looked at was Dramamine. It's like how many people are looking at, seasickness during these times of years when they're also doing these other things. And that's very much of the art as part of the science. And I think that too many times the science leads and owns it and there's not enough art to it. So kind of garbage in, garbage out. Like if you just rely completely on the science and there's no art to it, then you're going to just get back some stuff that are probably what everybody else is doing. It's nothing unique and it may very well not work.
So what would you say, especially in media, we talk about programmatic and some other things with modeling. How much do marketers really need to be, I guess, course correcting, right? To make sure things like that, these correlations are happening and setting, because a lot of it is, hey, if you buy programmatically, I set the target, it goes. So at least we feel a bit blind on our side. So how would you?
Yeah, it's funny. We definitely see from a lot of our clients at Basis that they'll come to us and say, this is the target that we want. Here's what we think is our core audience. And we'll start to test on that. And obviously we'll take the direction that our clients give us, but then we'll see like, hey, that's not nearly performing as well as some of the other things. And we do take a very close look at some of what those other things are. And we try and course correct. But everybody comes to us with a very specific KPI, and sometimes those things just don't marry to the data sets that they want. We also have had times where the data sets don't necessarily make a lot of sense. So we had a data set one time where it was something very nebulous, like I want to go after the artsy class of people. Well, okay, what do you mean by that? Like, could you be a little bit more specific? So trying to get people to understand exactly like who they're going after and why and what does that messaging look like, I think is super important, but the course correctness is very difficult. Like these people have worked a lot of times in marketing and that's what they're sold into and that's what they truly believe and they've put a lot of money towards it. So trying to convince them that, maybe that actually isn't the right way to go is a big challenge. So then it's all about measurement and sort of like what supports that, and we try and do that as well, but it's a challenge for sure.
So talked about some of the future things that are coming, some of the now with, we're all familiar with media and programmatic buying and some other things. But Sara, what are, in your world especially, it's not, there are things that are tent poles, I guess you could say. So what are the things that I think we're constantly worried about, everything's changing, we need to stay up. What are the things that are really just, that you think will stay constant? And then how will they update the things we take for granted, I guess, as a constant in media?
Well, hi, everyone. For those of you who don't know what TapOnIt is, we are a text message marketing platform. We are focused on multi-image MMS and text to conversion. And so it kind of goes to, there's a lot of things out there that are complex and that we're still trying to wrap our heads around, but it doesn't have to be that all the time. You can take it back to being simple, which something like a text message is extremely easy. You have to have the person opt in, right? So the consumer is saying, I want what you're going to give me. You get that first party data, zero party data right off the bat through the phone number, which is an extremely personal piece of information that that people have and don't change. Like I've literally had the same phone number since I got a cell phone when I was 14, and I have absolutely no intention of changing that phone number because it's connected to everything that I do. So once you get that phone number, it's easy then to continue building on that data simply by asking. So asking people questions through text message, asking through different ways to collect more information on them, and then being able to use that information and send ads or content or whatever it may be to the right person at the right time, knowing that they wanted it. So it's just kind of like there's so much amazing, cool digital stuff out there that everyone's still trying to really understand and learn how to make the most of it and do it the most successfully. But you really can keep it simple as well by taking it back to something that has been around for decades now at this point, which is a text message, but it has gotten better over the years, whether it was just, most people focusing on SMS, the fact that we can do multi-image MMS, pictures versus words is just a game changer, yet so simple. So kind of just really keeping it easy and being where the customer is, being where the human is, which in this case is right there on their phone in their text thread.
What's interesting about all of this is that we as consumers and the behaviors that we manifest, the decisions we make, they do follow us across devices, across platforms. And I know we collectively talk about identity and privacy and big challenges, but more and more the integration of these solutions is getting easier. And it is tied to certain very basic technological foundations and frameworks. So it's our job to connect those, but also build on it. This is not an either or situation. This is really an additive component to how we reach and connect and engage and ultimately upsell and build that positive feedback loop all over again.
So where do you see, just follow-up question on that, I don't think anybody saw that, eventually like hieroglyphs essentially came back, they're emojis, right? And now we can, there's entire communication channels that are just that. Where do you see the next thing? Is there a natural evolution where it's just images, like text character goes away? What do you think is going to happen? I mean, you spoke about simplicity a little bit.
Yeah, well, I know, there's shopping within the text message. There's links that can click through to wherever it is that you want them to go, which is something, that Matt said, kind of integrating all of those things is something that we really focus on as well, so that you can get past just the text message, right? Because yeah, you see it and you can act whatever that is, but what happens after the text message? And so I think that there's, a world of possibilities depending on what makes sense for that brand, whether it's you want them to shop, whether it's you want them to buy an NFT or explore, something like that. There really is a world of possibilities because again, once you get into that text thread and once you have that phone number, it just opens up these doors. So I don't know exactly what it's going to be, of course, but that's the fun of it, right?
So question for everybody. What do you think, or what do you think your business, what's the most misunderstood thing in the industry about what you do?
I can start. So we're Basis. Everybody kind of knows us from Centro. So we used to be Centro, and a lot of people know us from being sort of a hyper-local DSP. But we did change our names to Basis Technologies for a real reason, which is we now have a really amazing technology platform. And part of our sort of way of evolution into that is that the media landscape, especially media buying landscape, is incredibly complex, right? There's just, everything is disjointed. And to Matt's point, like everything is all over the place. So we built a platform where you can really conduct all of your business and all of your media buying, all of your planning and all of your measurement and all of your reporting within our platform. And it has a lot of advantages from either being a brand who might want to take something in-house to an agency who wants to collectively look at things across a lot of different clients, or it could even be that the brand decides that they kind of want to know what the agency is doing too. So there's a lot of transparency with that. But I would say the one thing is that, Basis has been very unique in the sense, and part of the biggest reason I went there is that, clients really look at it sort of a journey, and a lot of times it's, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, right? So we have people, we are sort of our tagline is we meet you where you are and we take you where you want to go. But what we end up finding is, especially right now with a lot of the, problems that are going on in terms of attrition and workforce, is that a lot of our clients are kind of waffling back and forth. And so we're incredibly malleable, and we're there to sort of help them wherever they are, because what we're finding is a lot of people wanted to take it in-house, but then some people quit. And so now they have to go back to being on the managed service side. Or they work with an agency and their agency is amazing, but the agency has lost a lot of headcount. So they use us for sort of like project work. So I guess my point just being is that, Basis is a technology now that everybody should know about. But 2, we're really there whenever you need us and however you need us. So it's definitely a nice sort of journey that we can help you take you on, or just sort of pitch it when you need to.
I can go. I feel like I have a few ideas about what's misunderstood at the moment about the broader Web3 ecosystem, but I'll give you just a couple and I'll synthesize it in the remaining 55 minutes that we have. Does that work? We only have 10. It's a joke. It's a lot to clear up here. The first, I think, and most misunderstood, is that the tokenization ecosystem, which is where we are all moving, and it's probably a new term for some of you, but it is not energy inefficient. It is quite efficient now. We've improved the technology to the point where any concerns that anyone may have had about burning down rainforests or energy consumption, you can totally abandon that concern, because it was a concern of mine and the technology has solved for all of those challenges. The second is that it requires cryptocurrency to get involved. And again, these are different types of experiences on the blockchain, but from a marketing and a consumer-friendly perspective, the barriers to entry are non-existent. Brands can easily mint tokens as loyalty, as tickets, as reward programs for very little cost. Actually, there's no cost to minting anymore. So you don't need cryptocurrency to mint or to purchase. The third myth is that you don't actually need to purchase NFTs. Increasingly, these are being earned as rewards or unlocked for participating or engaging in different experiences. You can text to earn NFTs. You can scan a QR code to get an NFT with just an email address. It is really that simple. But perhaps the most misunderstood aspect of all of this is that if we are moving the entire ecosystem tomorrow, it's impossible. But by bringing consumers and the community along with us, by incentivizing and rewarding them for behaviors they're already doing, then we're going to bring them on the blockchain. The data is going to be actually better than anything you've ever seen before, because we know what people own. It's not just behaviors that they may, or lookalike audiences. This is not a lookalike audience. I can look in a wallet. I may not know who you are, but I know what you own, where you've been, and what you've done. And that is extremely powerful and still respects all of the privacy issues that we have. So this, as I said, is going to be more of an evolution than a revolution. But for brands thinking about this, there are very easy steps in. And look no further than Starbucks, which has the second largest private economy in the world in their loyalty program based on points that you earn by drinking and going into a store. In the next 6 months, they're moving their entire loyalty program, your app, onto the blockchain. You are going to own NFTs that you didn't realize you own. Those will have liquidity, meaning you could sell them, you could trade them, but you own them. You can leverage them to unlock access to Delta Sky Miles or other partner rewards. But by me as an authenticator, as a brand, all of us, we can say, if you have this token, you can participate, or I will give you a token for participating. And that becomes the next generation of consumer engagement. It's an opportunity for us to get better data and own the content, the data, and the relationship with the consumer back, taking it back from Meta, from Google, from TikTok. We don't have to rely on them anymore, other than for the reach vehicles that they provide. We've recentered the digital architecture, putting your owned and operated content and commerce back at the center.
Super interesting. You're so smart.
Are you in?
I'm in.
Hands in, guys.
So
You know, I'm going to give
passionate.
everyone a free NFT right after this. So come see me, for real. I'll show you how easy it is.
So biggest misconception in my industry, when it comes to text marketing, there's a lot of compliance and regulations and things that go with it, so that we're making sure it's not being done wrong or being overdone or to the wrong people. And years ago, there was a lot of it being done wrong. And there are still some, things where you're like, what the hell is that? But
Don't name names.
but not through us, of course. But I really think that it all comes down to making sure that you have a partner that knows what they're doing, right? And so we make sure that compliance and regulations and rules and all of that is followed to a T. And so I just think that, for a brand to kind of come in, feeling confident about who they're going to be working with, knowing that we know the ins and outs of what we need to know and can help you be successful. I think that there's really, that's the biggest misconception, but it's easy to get over.
So obviously, I think there was something like years of tech build done during COVID in a 6-month period, right? Mm-hmm. So it forced a lot of digital transformation, forced a lot of just process transformation in general. So again, your opinion, or just predicting the future a little bit here, what do brands need to be doing now to prepare for the next shock or the next thing or whatever it is? What do we need to be doing, I guess, from a really any standpoint, just to prepare, or is it too late? I mean, are there things that, tell me what I need to do?
I mean, I know I've talked about data, first party and zero party data, but I really think it's just about making sure that you're building up those lists that you own, so that you can always get in front of those people and that they wanted to hear from you, because as marketing does continue to change, it gets harder to get in front of third-party data and all of those different things. So if you have a way to get in front of customers, whether they are, current or potential, and you're going to guaranteed get in front of them the way they want to be, marketed to, then at least you have that, as everything does kind of change around us. We don't really know what's going on.
I say for us, it's interesting. We find that, especially when we're talking about the software side of things, that a lot of our clients are like, the hurt has to be so bad because the lift to make a change and bring some things in-house or bring in a new technology. And then it's a struggle. They know they need to do it, but it's not a priority, or it's just not like what they want to do at that point in time. And I just feel like you're going to get to a point, we found this is certainly the case with a lot of advertisers, where it's like they get to a point where it's like, now it's crunch time. Now they're kind of screwed. Now it's like, oh God, it's going to be 10 times harder to do it today because I didn't think about doing it yesterday. And so I would say that for everybody should just really take a look at, like, okay, how are we supposed to prepare for the future? Like, what is our tech stack supposed to be? What is it that we need to prepare for ourselves from a software standpoint, a headcount standpoint, a measurement standpoint, all of that, because a lot of times people are still sort of stuck in the way they've been doing things for a while, and they just don't want to take on the big hurdle of actually updoing everything. And it's going to bite them in the butt.
I'm glad I went last because you guys both answered really, really well. For me, I think I would just add getting back to marketing 101 and the basics. Sometimes we overcomplicate things, but the marketing playbook for brands, marketers, and advertisers hasn't changed in 100 years. No matter the technology of the platform, it's know your audience, leverage data and insights to figure out the segmentation, build a strategy that's driven on those data and insight points, know where those people are, what platforms and what channels, create a strategy and a content plan that engages them. Engage them through the community management 101 that we've been going through for the last 15 plus years in digital, but then measure and optimize. It's a positive feedback loop. So if you revisit that, it is sort of realigning your incentives with your consumer. What are their objectives in a relationship, and what can you give them to ensure that that value exchange is equal or in their favor? And then figure out the right technology solutions, many of which already exist and some of which are continuing to evolve, and know who is engaging on those platforms and meet them where they are. Someone earlier was talking about metaverse challenges, and you know what? As probably the most Web3 person, at least on this panel,
How dare you, sir?
I agree that most
expert.
brands are not ready to be engaging in metaverse ecosystems yet. That is like step 7. Step 1 is knowing who your audience is, where they are. 2, it's giving them something that they want, leading them along with you. So for us, it is building a tokenization framework where those tokens become the actual unit of currency between brand and consumer now. Then you can build for the metaverse and Decentraland and Roblox, or maybe not. But either way, you've continued to solidify your relationship by aligning the incentives. And that's ultimately the bottom line. Aligning those incentives will give you an opportunity to reach new people where they are and reach existing people where they're going.
I'll just add, it's interesting because it's sort of like popped into my head, but we talk about incentives. But the other thing, I don't know about everybody else in this room, but creative has gotten really stale. And what I find is like, as somebody who rarely watches commercials, now that it's on CTV, there's more of it. But like, I get the same ad all the time. And I just wish that people were starting to invest a lot more in creative, something that's either sequential. So it's like, when you get these frequency caps where it's like, okay, I've seen this for the 15th time and it's the same ad.
It's not A/B testing, it's A testing.
It's just like, it's ridiculous. It's amazing. And we definitely see from like, we obviously run lots of different creative and across lots of different things, but it's just amazing to me that there's not more really good creative that's multiplicated, like that literally is either sequential or faceted or speaking to different people. Like I just cheer the creative
You know what's
that have done.
fascinating about this, by the way? The whole Web3 movement started because artists and creators were developing some really interesting and unique things, very visually stunning. And it actually led us down somewhat of a misaligned path where anyone thought they could be creator, and now the whole creator movement is amazing, but not everyone can be a creator. But the people who should be creators should be creating more of it and better versions of it and continue to use the technology that we represent to connect brand and consumer in a new way. So you're exactly right. It's more better from fewer people.
All right, we have 19 seconds left. So are there any questions that we can answer? They can answer. You don't want to hear from me.
Are they kicking us out? I mean, we can go all night, right? No, we can't. Maybe not.
There's a bar somewhere I think they're looking to get to. Or I am.
Same.
Thank you.
Thank you.